Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, perfect. I'm sorry because I had to change rooms because they are drilling upstairs. So this is one of the eventualities that transport manage, like that people need to face, like transport managers, for example. So I need to change to another room, but I hope that everything is okay and everything is working out. I'm going to share my screen, right? Okay. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, excellent. So, yeah. So thank you very much for inviting me. Really interesting experience and also a very interesting lecture. Thank you to Vicente Guayar. I was looking at the things that also he commented on the metropolitan perspective and the Barcelona Metropolitan Master Plan. Thank you for that. And since I knew that I was like after my presentation was after Vicente Guayar, so I thought, okay, he's going to put a lot of nice pictures. So I'm going to try to change the format of my presentation and I'm going to do something without pictures. I'm not going to talk about Barcelona's Metropolitan Master Plan, and I'm just going to give some ideas or some advice to the participants that they are doing this Citython, right? These ideas, they are just part of my personal experience that I've done with the time, like by doing my own research, also by mentoring or supervising certain final master projects and so on, but also because recently I was in this hackathon as a mentor, and I could interact with the different groups and see what they were proposing and try to help them with their projects, right? So as I already said, I'm working in the Metropolitan Master Plan at the Area Metropolitan of Barcelona. I'm also an adjunct professor at the UPC, and my background is civil engineering, and I am a doctor in traffic engineering, right? So as I said, I'm going to just give some quick concepts, and I hope that you can find them useful. First of all, the most important thing, ask yourself stuff, right? Why am I doing this? Why is that? How does it work, right? When you chose your degree at some point, right? Evidently, you needed to ask yourself stuff. But then once you enter into a certain degree, either you're studying, I don't know, architecture or computer science, etc., you had a program, right? And in this program, you had different courses. So you needed to actually do the exercises. But you didn't need to really think about your direction, right? Because that was given for you. You needed to complete your degree, right? So you didn't need to think about that, right? This is different, right? You are not anymore, I hope, in your degrees, you are not studying anymore, right? So you need to come up with a project. So nobody is gonna give you a direction, right? They might give you some objectives, they might give you some hints, but you need to come up with your own direction, right? Your own compass, right? In like whenever you are experiencing certain difficulties, or how am I going to try to explain that, or why this methodology, how should I apply that? You need to step back and see, why am I doing and why am I doing that, right? At least to me, that works a lot, right? I was doing my PhD thesis, and this kind of job, like this job is a bit lonely, right? So I spent like 5 years doing my research. So at some point I would come up with all these questions, right? So if I want cities to be more sustainable, to have less cars, why am I doing a traffic engineering program, right? Why am I trying to, because in traffic engineering, people try to solve traffic, to improve traffic, right? So I was thinking, okay, if I improve traffic, how am I going to make cities better? Because people will use more traffic, right? So I had to come up with my own compass, with my own direction, right? My own ultimate goal. So I think that this is super important. And that will be very useful for you to sell your story, right? To explain your story. Understand complexity. Cities are complex environments. It's not complexity, is not difficulty. I mean, it can be something easy to understand, but it might be complex because complexity means that things are interrelated, right? We cannot solve things just by looking at something like a certain particular stuff, right? Cities are extremely connected, right? Why do we move, right? We move because we want to get to a place, right? And because this place provides us with a benefit, right? And this benefit is higher than the cost of the mobility, right? Mobility is an intermediate good, right? So if we think it like that, maybe we end up thinking why things are there, right? Why these activities are located where they are, right? And then instead of being like a problem of mobility, it becomes a problem of urban planning. Or I could think why people choose this mode or this other mode, right? So instead of being a problem of mobility per se, it becomes a problem of discrete choice, of economics, a psychological problem, right? So it's really important to understand the complexity that cities have, right? Cities work with these logics of agglomeration, right? Where many activities and many things happen at the same place and at the same time, right? So we really need to understand those if we want to tackle the mobility, the urban mobility problems that we face nowadays. Yeah, anti-disciplinarity. Try to be try to fight disciplines. We live in a world where we explain things by putting things in boxes, right? Oh, I am an architect, I am an engineer. Since I am an architect, I think like that, I act like that, and I work there, right? And because I am an engineer, I should do these things, and I'm supposed to think like that, right? And I see the world like this, right? This is too oversimplistic. For a certain amount of time, I guess it worked because it allowed every discipline to get very deep into certain areas of knowledge. But right now, if we want to tackle these complex issues, we need to combine different disciplines, right? This is super important. In my own experience, I started, as I said, my PhD in Zurich, in Switzerland, and I was at the beginning only working with traffic engineers. But then I began to meet with architects, with geographers, or other urban planners. And then I started to see other perspectives. And that was like really rich for me because I could learn it's like learning a new language, right? Then I would come back to my traffic engineer people and I probably wouldn't understand them properly, right? Because I was already talking other languages. So it's really important to see all these different perspectives, right? And not only to acknowledge that, but put value in that, right? It's good that you have teams with different disciplines, people with different backgrounds, learn from that and tackle problems with these different perspectives. This, we have said that many times, right? But I think it's always good to remember that. Technology is only a tool. Technology is super important. I understand that, but it's only a tool. Sometimes I've seen some of you that enter these challenges, these hackathons, or these exercises just from the technological perspective, like saying, okay, I have this data, or I want to do this methodology because it's cool to program, and then I will figure out what I want to do, right? So it's a bit like the other way around, right? First, you need to think what you want to do, and then apply the methodologies and the technology and the data analysis to achieve that, right? What would you prefer? That you have like an excellent cook, like, I don't know, Ferran Adrià, that cooks for you with a knife and a fork and a pan, or that somebody that does not know how to cook with the cutting edge state-of-the-art technology, right? So it is not only about having the tools, but it's about having the intelligence of knowing where do you want to go and how are you going to apply this technology, right? The real intelligence, the real smart is about that. What is your planet model? I know that when you study, like in these environments where in hackathons or in these incubator environments where people try to come up with new ideas, innovation, startups, evidently, everybody is really excited about coming up with something new. And it's super important that this new innovation actually serves a purpose, right? And helps some people, right? And for sure, these solutions, these ideas, they need to be customer related, right? Customer focused. And also they need to have a business model behind, right? At the end of the day, you need to make money out of it, right? If you want this concept, this idea, innovation to be successful and sustainable, right? But evidently, we also know that there are many actions, especially in mobility, that create externalities, right? Externalities, there are costs that we don't cover, right? That a society or the planet absorbs, but we as users don't pay, right? That's why it's really, really important to be aware of these externalities. I think one of the goals of this Citython is to measure air quality, right? Air quality and air pollution is one of the main externalities of traffic, right? But also space consumption, right? So it's really, really important. If we want to address something, we really need to know what are the problems, what are the impacts that the different processes are creating, right? So it is great to be customer oriented. It is great to have a business model behind. But what I would like to ask you is, on top of that, what are you doing to improve the life of people that are not your customer, right? What is your planet model? What is your city model, right? How are you going to improve things? So I guess even though this is not your main focus, just try to answer these questions because it's really important. We all need to be aware that we are in a shared space, right? And we need to try to come up with solutions that solve not only the people of our customers, but everyone's life and planet. Keep it simple. I know I said that the cities are really complex and everything is super related, right? But keep it simple. You cannot solve everything. I'm sure you will get to a point in your hackathon that you will say, okay, this is too much, right? You will be there trying to combine this data and you had all these objectives and you wanted to do this and this other thing, and this will be too much, right? So again, take some steps back and keep it simple, one thing at a time, right? Do not try to solve everything. It's impossible to solve everything. If you are able to solve something, a little thing, that will be already a success. So try to keep everything simple. And then if you have time, if you see it clear, you can scale up from there, but try to be simple. Flexible and scalable concepts. It's a bit in connection with what we were saying before. If you keep things simple, so simple that you are able to see how this can serve one person, one street, right? Like this bottom to top approach, right? You can then see how your solution can scale up, right? And you can see how your solution, and you need to find ways that your solution is also applicable to like the whole area, like the whole city, the whole metropolitan area, the whole region, right? And the other way is also valid, right? If you come up with a solution, right, that needs a critical mass, and you think about the solution from top to down, you need to also see how the solution is applicable to small environments, right? Evidently, it's impossible to find solutions that are like totally scalable, that are applicable everywhere, but it's really good to do this exercise of analyzing different cases, right? And different applications, analyzing the robustness and the flexibility of your own solutions. Because the more flexible they are, the easier would be for you to explain them and to sell your concept. Resource allocation is the key, right? We've been for many months, we have heard this thing of flatten the curve, right? Why? Because during the pandemic, we were hearing that, there were more sick people and sick people in need of ICU beds and intensive care. There was more demand than the existing supply, right? There were not enough beds in hospitals to treat these people, right? So that was very important to flatten the curve, right? To reduce the infection rates to accommodate the supply and the demand. So that is the same thing that happens in cities every day. And this is the main transportation problem, I would say. Things are not homogeneous, are extremely heterogeneous. Cities are places of, as we said before, they work with economies of agglomeration, right? Firms, companies, they locate in certain places because they know they can take advantage of their neighbors, right? Either because they are customers, either because there are other companies that they work with, and also like people look for amenities, right? And they work to be close to their job place, right? So people tend to concentrate in cities, right? Right now with the pandemic, we were actually asking ourselves if this would be the model in the future, right? We don't know that, but the inertia that we have right now is that the cities work in this agglomeration perspective, right? And it's also a time perspective. People at the end, they did experiments in the 60s and in the 70s in the US. They tried to move the peak hour by doing by forcing some companies to enter later or earlier to work. But it never worked, because at the end, what you want is you need to leave your kids in the school, right? Because you have to work. And you need to call somebody else and this person needs to be at their workplace, right? So at the end, the system tends to have this equilibrium, and certain places and certain times, there is way more demand than the supply. So how can we spread out these flows of people across the space and time? That is the key issue that you need to tackle. And I think it's one of the objectives of this Citython, right? How to manage high people fluxes. This is really important, how to flatten this curve, not only temporally, but also spatially, right? Because you will find that even in peak hours, there are places in the city or in the metropolitan area that are empty, that nobody uses them, right? There are services that are empty. How is that possible? Is that an efficient way of resources? It's not, right? So this allocation, this meeting supply and demand is key for all these things. And finally, and with this I'll finish, you always need to look for synergies. I know I said that you need to keep things simple and to solve one specific thing at a time. But also, once you do that, right, evidently, like, you need to go to simple concepts. But once you have thought about a simple concept, try to do this experiment, right? Try to see how this concept can be applied to for other purposes. How can your concept could solve other issues? Let's say you are taking on challenge, I think it's number 2, right? How to come up with some urban models that ensure safety distance, right? The safety regulations for the pandemic, right? So somebody could say, okay, if I want to ensure this physical distance in public transportation, what I would need is to have, I don't know, faster public transportation. If I have faster public transportation, let's say buses, I will have, with the same resources, with the same number of buses, I will be able to have higher frequency. And if I'm having a higher frequency, I can actually have less people in each bus, right? So once you come up with your concept, that it could be just a specific solution to improve the commercial speed of a bus. It could be, I don't know, more efficient boarding and onboarding mechanism in a bus stop, right? There are many other concepts, but you have come up with this simple and bounded concept. But then what you could do is see how this concept also helps for other things, right? If you improve commercial speed in public transport, what you are doing is that maybe more people use public transport. If more people use public transport, then you might need to build, you change modal share, and you might need to build more bus lanes, for example, or you need to provide even more services. And then you are taking on traffic space, for example, right? So try to see how your concept, in this case, could also work for a more sustainable mobility, right? Because if you are able to focus and to sell in a way and to explain your story from a different perspective, you will be able to have what we were saying before, a more robust, right? And a more powerful idea, right? So at the end, you really need to put this focus on how can you solve things, right? How can you do them like in an efficient manner? How can your solution is as flexible, as scalable, right? As transdisciplinary as possible, right? And how your solution is helping at the end our society, our planet, and the life and the livability of cities, right? Well, with that, I hope that my humble ideas or advices are useful for you. And if you have any doubts or any comments, please let me know and I'll be happy to help. Thank you very much.